The black car stopped in front of the old orphanage just as the afternoon sun leaned low in the sky. The building was small, worn, and quiet, with paint peeling from the walls and windows that had seen better days. It did not look like a place someone rich would ever choose to visit. Still, the man inside the car stepped out without hesitation. His shoes were polished, his coat expensive, and his face carried the calm confidence of someone used to being obeyed. He was a millionaire, known in business circles for his sharp mind and even sharper words. People respected him, but few felt close to him. He believed feelings were weaknesses and that life rewarded only effort, not emotion. Charity, to him, was a public act, not a personal one. He gave money when it made sense, when it helped his image, or when someone convinced him it was a smart move. He did not believe kindness changed people. He believed pressure did. He had not planned to come to the orphanage. A close business associate had asked him to stop by after a meeting nearby. The associate was involved in charity work and had spoken for months about helping children without families. The millionaire usually ignored those talks, but that day he agreed, more out of politeness than interest. He told himself it would take 10 minutes, shake a few hands, leave a check, go home. As he walked through the front door, the smell of old books and cleaning soap filled the air. The hallway was narrow, and the lights were dim. Children's drawings were taped to the walls, showing houses, suns, and stick figures holding hands. He glanced at them briefly, then looked away. He had seen such places before. They always looked the same. The director of the orphanage greeted him with a nervous smile. She thanked him again and again for coming, her voice warm but careful. She knew who he was. Everyone did. She explained how hard things had been lately. Donations were down. Repairs were needed. Supplies were always short. He listened with half attention, nodding when expected, already thinking about how much money would end the conversation. They walked into a common room where several children were sitting on the floor, playing quietly. Some looked up when they saw him. Others stayed focused on their games. None ran toward him. None smiled widely. They had learned, over time, not to expect much from visitors. One child, sitting near the window, did not look up at all. The girl sat with her knees pulled close to her chest, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her hair was tied back loosely, and her clothes were clean but old. She was quiet in a way that made her easy to miss. The director began talking about the children, pointing out their talents. One was good at drawing, another loved math, another helped take care of the younger ones. The millionaire listened with a small smile that did not reach his eyes. He had heard similar words many times. To him, talent without opportunity meant little. Then the director mentioned music. She said one of the children loved the piano. She said the girl spent hours near the old instrument in the back room whenever she could. She said music helped her feel safe. The millionaire raised an eyebrow. He looked around the room, then laughed softly. It was not a cruel laugh, but it was dismissive. He said he found it hard to believe. He asked where the piano was. The director pointed down a hall and explained it was old and often out of tune. He shook his head slowly. He said many children claimed talents. He said stories like that were often exaggerated. He said people liked to use words like gifted to make situations sound more hopeful than they were. The director did not argue. She only said the girl truly loved music. That was when he spoke the words that would change everything, with a light tone, almost joking. He said that if the girl could really play the piano, he would adopt her himself. He said it casually, as if making a bet he knew he would never lose. He did not expect anyone to take him seriously. To him, adoption was a distant idea, something for other people. He was too busy, too set in his ways, too alone. Though he would never admit that part. The room went quiet. The director stopped smiling. The children looked up from their games. A few whispered to each other. The words hung in the air longer than he expected. He felt a small shift in the room and frowned slightly. He had meant it as a comment, not a promise. He was about to laugh it off when he noticed movement near the window. The quiet girl slowly stood up. She did not rush. She did not look excited. She simply stood, holding her hands together, her head lowered. For a moment, she said nothing. The director noticed her and gently called her forward. The girl hesitated, then took a few careful steps. Her shoes made almost no sound on the floor. She stopped a few feet away from the man and looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, but there was something deep inside them, something older than her age. She did not speak much. She only asked, in a soft voice, if she could play. The millionaire felt uncomfortable. He had not expected this. He glanced at the director, hoping she would step in and change the subject. Instead, she nodded. He shrugged. He said sure. He crossed his arms, already certain of the outcome. In his mind, this would last less than a minute. The girl would press a few random keys. People would smile politely. The moment would pass. As the girl walked toward the back room, he followed at a distance, more out of curiosity now than duty. The director and a few children followed too. The hallway seemed longer than before. The sound of footsteps echoed softly. The piano sat in the corner of a small room. It was dusty and worn, with chipped wood and yellowed keys. It looked like something forgotten by time. The millionaire studied it and felt his confidence return. Whatever talent the girl believed she had, this piano would expose the truth. The girl sat down slowly. She placed her hands on her lap and closed her eyes for a moment. She took a deep breath. The room was silent. The millionaire checked his watch. He thought again about how strange the visit had become. He told himself this was why he avoided emotional places. People expected too much. They read meaning into careless words. He promised himself that after this, he would leave. The girl lifted her hands toward the keys. Just before she touched them, he noticed something. Her fingers hovered with care, not fear. Her shoulders were tense, but her face was peaceful. This was not the posture of someone pretending. Still, he remained skeptical. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, ready for the noise to begin and end. He did not know that the next few moments would challenge everything he believed about strength, talent, and promises. The first note had not yet been played, but the room already felt different. And for the first time in a long while, the millionaire waited, not out of politeness, but with a quiet sense of curiosity he did not recognize. The girl sat still in front of the piano, her hands resting just above the keys. The room was quiet enough that everyone could hear her breathing. The millionaire watched her closely now. He told himself he was only waiting so he could leave once this was over. But something about her calm made him pause. Before she played, her thoughts drifted far from that room. She had not always been quiet by choice. When she was younger, she used to talk more. She used to laugh. But life had a way of teaching her when to be silent. She had learned early that words did not always protect people, and promises did not always last. She barely remembered her parents' faces clearly. What she remembered best was sound. Her mother's voice humming in the evening. The soft tap of fingers on a table, pretending it was a piano. Music filled the small home they once shared. Even when money was short. When everything changed, music was the only thing that stayed. After the accident that took her parents, she moved from place to place before arriving at the orphanage. Each move felt colder than the last. People were kind, but kindness often came with distance. No one wanted to get too close. No one wanted to promise too much. At the orphanage, she learned how to disappear in a room full of people. She followed rules, helped when asked, and stayed out of trouble. Teachers said she was polite. Caretakers said she was easy to manage. But inside, she carried thoughts she rarely shared. The piano had been there long before she arrived. It sat in the back room, ignored and broken in places. One key stuck, another sounded dull. But to her, it was still a piano. The first time she touched it, she did not know how to play. She pressed one key, then another. She listened carefully. She remembered her mother's hands, moving gently, never rushed. She copied what she could remember. Over time, patterns formed. Sounds turned into simple songs. She practiced when no one was watching. Early mornings, late evenings. Sometimes she was told to stop because the sound traveled through the halls. Sometimes she was told she was wasting time. She nodded and apologized, but always came back. Music became her place to breathe. She never told anyone she wanted to be a musician. She never dreamed out loud. Dreams felt dangerous when life could change overnight. So she kept her music small and private. Until that day, when the wealthy visitor had spoken. She had not fully understood his words at first. She only heard the part about the piano. She felt something tighten inside her chest. She did not want to impress him. She did not care who he was. But the idea that her music was being doubted made her stand, not out of pride, out of honesty. She believed music should be heard when it was asked for. Back in the room, she placed her fingers on the keys. They shook slightly, but she steadied them by taking another breath. She did not look at the people behind her. She focused only on the piano. The first notes were soft, almost too soft. The millionaire frowned. He leaned forward slightly, unsure if she had even started. The sound was gentle, but clear. It filled the room slowly, like light through a window. The girl played simply, No fast movements, no dramatic pauses, just a steady flow of notes that felt personal, as if she were speaking without words. As the music continued, the children gathered closer. Some sat on the floor, others stood quietly. The director covered her mouth with one hand, her eyes filling with tears she did not wipe away. The song carried sadness, but not despair. It carried loss, but also hope. It sounded like someone who had been hurt but chose to keep going. The millionaire felt his posture change. His arms loosened. His thoughts slowed. He had heard many skilled musicians before. He had attended concerts in grand halls with perfect sound and famous performers. But this felt different. This was not about skill alone. It was about truth. He remembered something he had not thought about in years. When he was young, before money and success, he had wanted to learn an instrument. His family had laughed it off. There was no time for music, they said. There was work to be done. Dreams could wait. They never did. The girl's hands moved with care, finding harmony even when the piano resisted her. She adjusted without frustration. She accepted the broken keys and worked around them, as if she had learned long ago that perfection was not required to make something beautiful. The millionaire swallowed hard. He did not understand why his chest felt tight. He looked around the room. The children were silent. No one was bored. No one whispered. Even the building itself seemed to listen. The song came to an end quietly. There was no final dramatic note, just a gentle closing, like a door being shut softly. For a moment, no one spoke. The girl kept her hands on the keys, waiting. She did not smile. She did not look back. She was used to silence after playing. Silence did not scare her. Then someone breathed out slowly. The millionaire realized it was him. He straightened up, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on him. He felt exposed in a way he did not like. He had made a statement earlier, one he had not meant to keep, but the room remembered. The director stepped forward gently and thanked the girl. The children began to clap softly, unsure at first, then louder as they gained confidence. The sound filled the room, but the girl only nodded once and stood. She turned and faced the man. She did not ask anything of him. She did not remind him of his words. She only looked at him calmly, as if trusting him to decide who he wanted to be. That look stayed with him. He cleared his throat and said something polite about the performance. The words sounded weak to his own ears. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, pretending to check a message. In truth, he needed a moment. This was not how things were supposed to go. He had come to give money, not attention. He had come to stay untouched. Yet something inside him had shifted. As he prepared to leave the room, he paused at the door and looked back once more. The girl was already wiping the keys with a small cloth, treating the piano with care, as if it were alive. He felt a question forming in his mind, one he was not ready to answer. What did a promise mean, when it was spoken without thought but heard with hope? He left the room quietly, but the music followed him down the hall, staying with him long after the last note had faded. The weeks that followed moved slowly, yet everything felt different. The man kept coming to the orphanage, sometimes with papers to sign, sometimes with nothing but time. He learned that real change did not arrive all at once. It came in small steps, quiet moments, and long conversations that were not always easy. The process was harder than he had expected. There were interviews where he had to answer questions about his past, his work, his reasons. Some questions made him uncomfortable. Others forced him to face parts of himself he had ignored for years. But each time doubt crept in. He thought of the girl at the piano, playing without asking for anything in return. The girl noticed his presence more now. She did not rush toward him. She did not treat him like a hero. She simply accepted that he was there. That alone meant more to him than praise. Sometimes he sat nearby while she played. Other times they spoke very little. He learned that she did not like too many questions. She preferred listening. He respected that. One afternoon, he brought a piano tuner with him. He did not announce it. He simply asked permission. The girl watched quietly as the old instrument was carefully adjusted. When she touched the keys afterward, her eyes widened slightly. The sound was clearer, warmer. She did not say thank you. She just played. That was enough. As months passed, the paperwork moved forward. Home visits were scheduled. Inspectors walked through his large, empty house and asked where the child would sleep, study, play. For the first time, he saw his home through different eyes. It no longer felt complete. He made changes slowly. A smaller bedroom became a child's room. The space felt strange at first, but not unpleasant. He found himself thinking about light, warmth, and quiet corners. The day came when the final approval arrived. He went to the orphanage early that morning. The director greeted him with a smile that trembled. She called the girl into her office. The girl sat across from them, her hands folded, her face calm but curious. The director explained gently that she would be leaving the orphanage, that she would have a home, that someone had chosen her. The girl listened carefully. Then she looked at him. She asked one simple question. "Will I still have the piano?" He felt his throat tighten. He nodded and said yes. She thought for a moment, then nodded too. There were no tears, no dramatic reactions, just a quiet understanding. The move happened a few days later. The girl packed the few belongings she had, clothes, a small notebook, and a folded piece of paper with music notes drawn by hand. When she walked out of the orphanage, she paused and looked back once. Not with sadness, but with respect. It had been her shelter. The car ride to the house was silent, not awkward, just new. When they arrived, she stepped inside slowly. She took in the space, the light, the quiet. She did not run. She did not explore wildly. She moved carefully, as if learning the shape of something important. He showed her the piano waiting in the living room. It was not new or grand. It was chosen with care. She walked toward it and placed her hands on the keys. The sound filled the room. This time, it sounded like beginning. Life together was not perfect. There were moments of misunderstanding, days when silence returned, nights when memories surfaced quietly. But there was also laughter, shared meals, and music drifting through the house. He learned how to listen. She learned that some promises stayed. One evening, as the sun set and the piano played softly, he realized something important. He had gone to the orphanage, believing he had everything. But the truth was, he had been empty in ways money could not fix. The girl had not only found a home, she had given one. And it all began with a careless sentence, spoken without thought, and answered with honest music. The man did not sleep well that night. He lay awake longer than he liked to admit, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. His house had always been silent, and he had liked it that way. Silence meant control. Silence meant no surprises. Now it felt loud. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the girl sitting at the piano. Not the room, not the people watching, just her and the keys. The way she leaned forward slightly, the way her fingers hovered before touching the sound. He wondered how someone so young could carry so much weight and still sit so calmly. He got out of bed before sunrise and made coffee he barely tasted. He stood by the window again, watching the sky grow lighter. The day ahead waited for him, full of meetings and decisions, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept thinking about promises. All his life, he had avoided them. He made deals, contracts, agreements written on paper. Those were safe. Promises made with the heart were not. They could break people. He had seen that happen when he was younger. Adults had promised him things too: time, attention, support. Most of those promises disappeared when they became inconvenient. He learned early that expecting too much only led to disappointment. That lesson had helped him succeed, or so he believed. Later that morning, he returned to the orphanage again. He told himself he was only going to talk, to understand, nothing more. The driver said nothing as the car stopped at the gate. The building looked the same as always, old, modest, easy to overlook. Inside, the director greeted him with a mix of surprise and concern. She asked if something was wrong. He said no. He said he just wanted to spend a little time there. She nodded, though she looked unsure. They walked through the hall slowly. The children were in class, their voices soft behind closed doors. The sound reminded him of a life he had never experienced. He asked many questions, about daily routines, about school, about what happened when children grew older and had to leave. The director answered honestly. Some stories had good endings, others did not. He listened quietly. Then he asked about the girl. The director smiled, but there was sadness in it. She said the girl was strong in quiet ways. She said she rarely cried and never complained. She said she carried her pain carefully, like something fragile. He nodded, absorbing every word. Later, he found the girl in the back room again. She was dusting shelves this time. When she noticed him, she froze for a moment, then continued working. He asked if she minded talking for a bit. She looked at the floor and shrugged. They sat on opposite sides of the room. He did not know how to begin. Business meetings were easy. This was not. He asked her how long she had played the piano. She said she did not know. He asked why she liked it. She thought for a moment, then said it helped her remember. He asked what she remembered. She said home. That single word landed harder than any speech. He did not ask more. He did not want to push. Silence returned, but this time it felt shared. After a while, he asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. She shook her head. She said she did not think that far ahead. He understood that more than he wanted to. Before leaving, he asked if she would play again someday. She nodded. That evening, he met with a legal advisor. He listened as forms and steps were explained. Background checks, interviews, home visits, time, a lot of time. None of it sounded simple. He could have stopped there. He could have told himself it was unrealistic, that caring too much would only complicate things. Instead, he asked what the first step was. Days passed, and he kept returning to the orphanage. Sometimes he brought supplies. Sometimes he just sat and observed. He began to notice things he had missed before. How the children looked at adults with hope mixed with caution. How quickly they learned not to ask. The girl remained quiet, but she seemed more at ease with his presence. She did not avoid him. She did not cling to him either. One afternoon, he listened as she played again. No audience this time, just the two of them and the old piano. The music felt even more honest without people. Watching, he realized something then. This was not about keeping a promise he had made without thought. This was about choosing to show up. That truth frightened him. Late one night, he sat alone and thought about how much his life would change. About responsibility, about failure, about the possibility of doing something wrong. He also thought about what would happen if he did nothing. He imagined the girl growing older, leaving the orphanage, carrying her music alone into a world that rarely listened. That image stayed with him. The next morning, he returned to the orphanage once more. He asked the director to speak privately. He told her he wanted to begin the process. She did not react right away. She studied his face carefully, as if searching for doubt. When she saw none, her eyes filled with tears. She thanked him, but he stopped her. He said this was not about being thanked. It was about being honest. Later, he found the girl near the piano. He did not explain everything. He did not make big promises. He only told her that he would be around more often. She looked up at him, surprised. She asked why. He paused, then said because he wanted to be. She considered that answer carefully, then nodded. For the first time, he felt the weight of his earlier words lift slightly. The promise was no longer careless. It was becoming real. The weeks that followed moved slowly, yet everything felt different. The man kept coming to the orphanage, sometimes with papers to sign, sometimes with nothing but time. He learned that real change did not arrive all at once. It came in small steps, quiet moments, and long conversations that were not always easy. The process was harder than he had expected. There were interviews where he had to answer questions about his past, his work, his reasons. Some questions made him uncomfortable. Others forced him to face parts of himself he had ignored for years. But each time doubt crept in. He thought of the girl at the piano, playing without asking for anything in return. The girl noticed his presence more now. She did not rush toward him. She did not treat him like a hero. She simply accepted that he was there. That alone meant more to him than praise. Sometimes he sat nearby while she played. Other times they spoke very little. He learned that she did not like too many questions. She preferred listening. He respected that. One afternoon, he brought a piano tuner with him. He did not announce it. He simply asked permission. The girl watched quietly as the old instrument was carefully adjusted. When she touched the keys afterward, her eyes widened slightly. The sound was clearer, warmer. She did not say thank you. She just played. That was enough. As months passed, the paperwork moved forward. Home visits were scheduled. Inspectors walked through his large, empty house and asked where the child would sleep, study, play. For the first time, he saw his home through different eyes. It no longer felt complete. He made changes slowly. A smaller bedroom became a child's room. The space felt strange at first, but not unpleasant. He found himself thinking about light, warmth, and quiet corners. The day came when the final approval arrived. He went to the orphanage early that morning. The director greeted him with a smile that trembled. She called the girl into her office. The girl sat across from them, her hands folded, her face calm but curious. The director explained gently that she would be leaving the orphanage, that she would have a home, that someone had chosen her. The girl listened carefully. Then she looked at him. She asked one simple question. Will I still have the piano? He felt his throat tighten. He nodded and said yes. She thought for a moment, then nodded too. There were no tears, no dramatic reactions, just a quiet understanding. The move happened a few days later. The girl packed the few belongings she had, clothes, a small notebook, and a folded piece of paper with music notes drawn by hand. When she walked out of the orphanage, she paused and looked back once, not with sadness, but with respect. It had been her shelter. The car ride to the house was silent, not awkward, just new. When they arrived, she stepped inside slowly. She took in the space, the light, the quiet. She did not run. She did not explore wildly. She moved carefully, as if learning the shape of something important. He showed her the piano waiting in the living room. It was not new or grand. It was chosen with care. She walked toward it and placed her hands on the keys. The sound filled the room. This time, it sounded like beginning. Life together was not perfect. There were moments of misunderstanding, days when silence returned, nights when memories surfaced quietly. But there was also laughter, shared meals, and music drifting through the house. He learned how to listen. She learned that some promises stayed. One evening, as the sun set and the piano played softly, he realized something important. He had gone to the orphanage, believing he had everything. But the truth was, he had been empty in ways money could not fix. The girl had not only found a home, she had given one. And it all began with a careless sentence, spoken without thought, and answered with honest music.